Hi, this is John Rowell for the Rowell Report. Today is Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, and I'm going to speak about France. There's so much to love about France. We got French bread, we have French cheeses, we have French wines, we have escargot, we have all the architecture that you could ever hope to see that's beautiful in one city called Paris. And they have the TGV train. Um, they have their different regions where they grow. They will have their vineyards, and there's so much beautiful about France. But the problem with France sometimes is the French people, that they're not able to agree, and this could not be more the case politically right now. We have Francois Bayrou, who has tendered his resignation and left the position of prime minister after a vote of no confidence. He was in his position 9 months. He attempted to carry out austerity measures, but without having widespread consensus among the other parties. He wasn't good at talking to people and trying to figure out a way forward. He was just going to put a straitjacket, financial straitjacket on France, and the people were not going to have a straitjacket put on them. So he had problems from both sides of the aisle, and right now France is basically an ungovernable country. We have the president who was elected with a huge majority. He was elected twice, and so both times with 60% at least of the vote, and that's almost a landslide. And yet he wasn't elected from one of the parties that was had a wide presence in their parliament and their assembly. So anyway, that made for a situation that became very toxic, and now we are into our fifth prime minister for France. Yesterday, President Macron named his new prime minister, and so we'll take a brief look at him. Let's take a brief look also at the mistakes of Bayrou. First, he wanted to carry out austerity measures, but he didn't want to speak to anyone and to get a consensus. And he was only cutting 44 billion. France needs to cut 110 billion. That's not even, well, that's basically about 40% of what needs to be cut. And he was cutting in things that were very easy to cut. And yet he decided to try to cut in areas that others consider to be kind of sacred and untouchable, like their national holidays. And he was very offensive to the other parties in the way he acted. So, but you have to say really that he was DOA at the start of his term. He did not try to negotiate or build support with the other parties, did not try to create a coalition. He was just, trying to, take a funnel and open up France's mouth and dump, the medicine down the throat, and the people were not going to have that. So his austerity measures were too harsh in some areas, as considered by some, and it was focusing on the middle lower income groups and not touching the higher income groups, which would have the greater possibility of resolving their budget issues. So his communication strategy was very poor. Instead of talking to people, he would put out videos and media appearances, and I suppose he wanted the opposition to watch his video instead of having him come and just sit with them and talk to them. And that's a very poor communication strategy. And but Macron came in. He was given kind of a mandate, so he's like, I'm here to do a job, and then all the other parties, they're elected to do a job, and no one can get a majority to break this impasse. So France is starting to descend into chaos, political chaos at least. And today is the Block Everything Day, so it's We'll see if this protest continues on much longer. There's national strikes planned for tomorrow, and then after that, it may be business as usual. It's France, who knows? Anything can happen. But anyway, just regarding the votes against him, he lost the no confidence vote. There were 364 votes against him, 194 for him. So they only needed 280, I think 288 to remove him, and they got far more than that. Um, he was very unpopular, and he was a very poor choice from the beginning. It seems like Macron doesn't want to communicate with the other parties. He just wants to force all these measures down their throats, and there's a lot of cutting that needs to be done. And if they can't even agree to cut 44 billion, then they're not going to be able to cut 110 billion, which they need to do. So we have political unrest going on. Oh, today is the Block Everything, and the National Day of Strikes and Protests is scheduled for Thursday, September 18th. So sorry about that. The National Day of Strikes is for this Thursday in 8. So anyway, there were some potential candidates to replace Bayrou who could have bridged the gap. We have um, Olivier Faure. He's the leader of the Socialist Party. He put forward some proposals. So he was trying to find a solution. There was the most popular choice, which was seen as a possibility of bridging the gap, was Bernard Cazeneuve, and he was a former prime minister um, and a former socialist. So he probably had the best possibility of being able to reach across the aisle and come up with a plan. But anyway, the person who was chosen by President Macron was um, Sébastien Lecornu. He was the outgoing French minister for the armed forces. He is a reserve colonel in their national gendarmerie. And so he was in the position of minister for the armed forces for basically 3 years, since May 20th of 2022. So anyway, he's been given a lot of decorations: the Knight of Agricultural Merit, the Knight of the Order of Arts and Letters, as president of the Museum of the Impressions in Giverny. So what he needs is a decoration for the Knight and of the Order of Numbers, at least balancing numbers. But this is a military man, and so he seems to be the sign from President Macron that he's stiffening his positions against the opposition. And this probably will be his attitude until presidential elections in 2027, if President Macron arrives until then. So anyway, I put into ChatGPT plausible 110 billion consolidation plan to get France back on track financially. And there are places where they can agree on and cut. But if this Prime Minister Lecornu is not willing to reach across the aisle and is going to take a very antagonistic attitude towards the opposition, then we will just continue to get logjam in. They may not be able to pass a budget, and then what happens? But in any case, it looks like for France, the situation is going to get worse before it gets better. In any case, they still have the need to cut. So at some point, they will have to figure out together how to get to a solution that works for France. And so that is the bad news about France. This Friday there will be a review, I believe, by Moody's of the France's rating. So we should see a downgrade to their rating, and this will make borrowing costs higher. So we can start to see the dominoes start to fall for this French government, because the people will not tolerate the uh, grave political problems in France for very long. Um, but the surprising thing is that the Fifth Republic, which we are in now, the Fifth Republic in France, was set up to avoid all the political log jams that were present in the Third and Fourth Republic. So they thought that they had found the secret formula to fix all the problems in France. But hey, this is France, so they found a way to figure out how to create an ungovernable France, and how to create a situation in which they um, will be back in a similar situation that the Third and Fourth Republics went into. So we may see a Sixth Republic in France, so that they can find the magic formula to figure out how France can function with the political situation in France. Anyway, I just wanted to touch on this subject for France, and so I would expect more bad news to follow. This was not a very good selection for President Macron, but this seems to also point in the direction that France is taking in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. France continues to try to increase the heat in this whole conflict, to promise troops, and to set up hospitals for casualties. And so it seems like France is starting to get into a kind of a war footing. So anyway, this could be the real reason why Lecornu was chosen, and he may just use this measure. They call that the Article 49.3, to try to pass bills without a parliamentary vote. So I guess that is the magic pill to fix all problems in the French Assembly. So we will see what road they take, but this kind of signals for me a clear signal that France is heading towards a deeper and deeper involvement in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and having someone who's a reserve colonel who's had military experience and was the minister of the armed forces for 3 years seems like France is heading in that direction, wanting some kind of entry into this war. So we'll see where this goes. And again, thank you for joining me for this video. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. This supports independent journalism, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Bye bye.